So referrals. This is one of my probably most asked questions, especially among independent service providers. And I think it's really great to break down how to build a strong referral business because it can be one of the most powerful means of growing as an independent. So for those of you that are new to me, just brief, I'm not going to spend any time on this, but I'm here because I believe in freedom through entrepreneurship. I have been an ex-architect, an ex-brick and mortar business owner, and now I spent 7 years in the coaching space and 3 years of that as a nomad. So I believe in the lifestyle you can create for yourself. Known for systems, for finding blind spots, and I'm a lead coach of Namawo, as Anna said, but I also coach independently and have a nonprofit that I support other small business owners through. So I'm in all things business because of this goal of creating freedom. Let me open the chat box too, so I can hopefully see that. There we go. Yeah. So what are we going to talk about today? Referrals. Why referrals? I would love to hear, and you can type it in the chat while I'm talking today, and make sure if there's any questions, I'll come back to. We'll have plenty of time at the end. But why are you in this session? Why did you take an hour out of your Tuesday to show up live? And for those of you watching the recording, why did you take some time to do this? I heard passive income. Okay, so money coming to you without necessarily a lot of output. Brilliant. Who else is excited about referrals? Why else do you love them? I've got some reasons I'll share, but I'm curious to hear from the audience who's with us. So less active selling, so sales being easier, sales being sort of magically just having more clients come to you, right? This is sort of, I think, the romantic view of that, quality clients. There you go, Anna. Absolutely. So my experience, just to give you guys a little context, in the last year, 90% of my business has come from referrals, which is why I talk about this. So that's actually more than 6 figures worth of business purely through word of mouth, through relationships, through people sending their network to me for support, which I take a lot of pride in that because that says a lot about what I built as a brand and as a professional and those sorts of things. So that's partly why I wanted to put kind of what I've learned over the years into something to share because it can be such a huge impact on your business. Katrina says had a great experience, wanted to see if she's doing it right. Doing things right. That's a loaded question, but maybe we can look at, can we do things better, or are there opportunities that you haven't yet leveraged to make it even better, right? If you're already getting some good quality referrals, I imagine you're doing some things right, but we'll talk about how do we structure this. So why referrals? For me, first and foremost, they are the most cost effective way to grow your business because you're not necessarily spending money on it, right? These are people coming to you without ad spend, without having to build funnels, without having to feel like you're actually putting a lot of energy out into the world in a competitive space and competing against everybody else in your particular industry, right? So referrals, generally speaking, tend to be free. So that's always a really lovely way to create something from what feels like nothing monetarily. It's a very interesting spin on sort of the abundance you can create through relationship building, and let that really be a great lever for growth for your business is people coming to you almost without necessarily doing much. So no need to sell actually. Is one way to do it, or at least what we think of as a process of selling is one thing. And then Anna mentioned this one. Second reason I think referrals are amazing, quality. If you do this right, you can actually get an amazing quality of prospect coming right to you. And there is a difference in all the leads out there, right? So sometimes you can actually leverage your network to almost pre-screen, pre-qualify exactly who you're looking for if you can do the work on the front end. And we'll talk about how to do that a little bit later. But quality of leads is a big piece of it as well. And lastly, referrals typically are ready to buy because by the time they've had a conversation with somebody about needing your service or talked about wanting support with whatever it is that you do, they're already in the buyer's mindset. So usually the sales cycles are a lot shorter with referrals because they're in that state of readiness. Otherwise, they would have never had the conversation or never been referred to you if there wasn't that awareness that they were looking for help solving the problem that you solve, right? So those are my big 3 is you don't spend money to get them, so they feel a lot easier. They feel like free clients, right? Free business growth. They're better quality and they're faster and ready to buy, which makes your whole job in sales feel a lot easier. It makes business growth feel a lot easier, right? So if they're all so wonderful and amazing, why don't we have more of them? What makes it hard to get referrals? And better, let's talk about what referrals are not before we start to give you the structure to create better referrals, because they're maybe not what some of us might be thinking from that romantic standpoint. So, what is a referral not? Referral is not you just if you build it, they will come, just sitting back and expecting like magnetic clients coming to you with zero effort. I don't believe that's what referrals are, at least not this sort of referral based business that I'm talking about today. Referrals are also not avoiding the discomfort of being visible and thinking you can be the best kept secret in your industry as long as a few people know about you. Also, not necessarily the best business strategy and not how you create a thriving referral business, which is what our goal is today. And referrals are definitely not your network and your clients automatically just knowing how to sell your business for you, knowing how to market you better than you market yourself. That is not what I believe a referral business is. And also, in case anybody was wondering, it's my opinion is also not a pay for lead system among friends and or sharks or people that don't know you that just want to make a quick buck sending anybody they can in the hopes that you'll convert them and they'll make a dollar whether or not they even know what you do. So I also don't think that's what a good referral business is. Can you have gifts or incentives or affiliates? Absolutely. But if you're thinking about it and just, hey, I'll pay you to send me some leads, I don't think that's what we're talking about here today. Not in terms of that quality, sustainable, thriving referral business, which I think is what everybody wants, right? So if that's what it's not, let's talk about what it is. So, and what it takes to build a referral business. So, a solid referral business is one where you are really known for delivering excellent service, for being really good at what you do, and having the trust that if somebody sends somebody to you, you're going to take really good care of them. So, there's an element of reliability, there's an element of excellence, and your work starts to define, and how you show up in your work really starts to define the experience somebody else could expect if they came with you. And you also need to be memorable to build a referral based business. Because if you're a copywriter, there's a lot of copywriters. How will they know to send people to you versus somebody else in the space if you aren't memorable in addition to being excellent? So you need to be memorable enough that others think about you and are willing to share. So here's some ways to make it really easy to refer. We'll break down the formula for how to do that, what that looks like in a second. But you want to make yourself the easiest solution for somebody to refer somebody to you. And that starts with, are you clearly sharing what you do for others? This is why I say you can't expect everybody else to market your business for you. You also still have to be doing a base of your own marketing. You have to be sharing your message. You have to be sharing the problems that you solve. You have to have that piece of what you do clear and publicly available. Because whether or not your direct marketing is where people are coming from, if somebody refers somebody to you, do you think they're going to look you up? Are they going to go and pull up your profile? Are they going to pull up your website? Are they going to pull up your social media? Are they going to look and see if what you do sounds like what they're looking for based on what their friend said? Most people will do some homework before they take the step of getting on a discovery call or hiring you or these sorts of things. And so that's a secondary piece. You need to have that base of what you do is out there, not just for your prospects, but also for people who want to refer you. They're going to try to find a link to something to share with their friends. So you need to be sharing that consistently. And not only what you do, but who you help. What sort of connections are really good for you? Not all referrals are created equal. Who here in the chat has ever had a bad referral come through? Anybody? Anybody had somebody like send somebody to you and you're like, that's not even what I do. How did that ever even land in my inbox? I've had that experience in the early days, and it was yeah, Elena's like, yeah. It was a big light bulb that, I haven't clearly shared my message consistently enough with my network for them to understand what I do, who I'm looking for. Because there's a disconnect. Somebody doesn't have it yet. They want to help, but not the most helpful on either side, right? Now multiple people are disappointed in that case. So I think you getting the base of that, having a baseline of where and how often you share that is important. And within that, hopefully you're being memorable and building a reliable reputation as a professional, right? And Anna says, I'm oftentimes told I'm so analytical, but I want to be more creative in their eyes. Yeah, so how you perceive versus how you want to be perceived, we actually do have to teach people how to think about us in the way that we want to grow and grow our business, right? They're going to have their impressions. And so how you show up in any way, socially and professionally, is going to be part of what people think of if they're thinking about referring you. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to be thought of this way, but you also need to educate your referral potential partners on how you want to be described, who you're really looking for, what you're really doing, in a way that's memorable, right? And then the last piece is, if you expect people to refer business to you, it's really up to you to do 99% of the work for your referrer. Make it so, so, so easy for them. And I'll talk about what that looks like. But we got to do the heavy lifting. This is, creating swipe copy, giving them a template, giving them introduction. And we'll talk about the specifics of the how a little bit in a second. But if somebody has to think, should I send them a social? Should I send them an email? Should I connect them on LinkedIn? Should I just give somebody their number? Like, people don't automatically know how to refer you business unless you tell them. Just like people don't automatically know what it is that you do unless you tell them, or who you want to be connected to unless you tell them. So step one is you got to start telling people very specific things. So we'll talk about what that looks like. So do the work, though, is the biggest piece of advice. If you can package yourself as the easiest person to connect to somebody and make it so, so, so simple, you will get a lot more, right? As simple as you think about other aspects of marketing, other aspects of what you're doing to grow your business. Landing pages that are like 18 miles long, or forms that have 25, 28, 30 different inputs are filled out a lot less often than the one that's like two things, a name and an email. Click, you get a lot higher percentage, right? So similarly, can you package it to where you're a one-click referral, or like a super copy and paste referrer, or you've made it that easy to help somebody connect to you, because you're asking them for a lot of trust already. We don't need to make it harder by then asking them to figure out how to do it, right? That's asking literally for them to market your business for you. So I don't believe that's their job. I think that's your job to do the work on that. And it says, think about referrers as your grandma who can't understand what it is you're doing. How do you explain it? Yes, I love the grandma analogy. I've used that in the past in a lot of messaging. Can you explain it in layman's terms, even if you're a very technical service provider? The problems that you solve, not what you do, the problems that you solve, what you actually help other people achieve. If you can explain that in a very accessible layman's term, that is what people will remember, and also what somebody who's not in your industry will be able to remember and repeat to somebody else, right? So that's the do the work piece of get your marketing, your messaging, your positioning, the problems that you solve, the statements ready and packaged nicely to make it really easy for somebody. So that's step one. Do the work. And then you can actually ask for referrals. So how do you ask? For me, it's a four-part process to ask for referrals. And we'll talk about assumptions of just assuming people know that you want business. We're coming up on that because that's another mistake a lot of folks make. So for me, a good referral ask includes why you're asking this particular person, what it is that you actually help with, what you solve, not what you do, but like what problems you solve. Who is the perfect connection? And we'll talk about what that looks like and how to make that referral. Then give them the directive of what the next steps are to take all the decision making out of their lap and put that onus on yourself. You've already done the work, right? So if we look at why, and this depends on who you're speaking to, but why that person are we asking? Are they a good connector? Did they play cards with the people that you think are your ideal client? Are they in a club that is all of your ideal personas? Did they graduate from the university where you're trying to make an inroads? Did they work for the company that you are hoping to get your foot in the door in? Why this person? Did they used to work for the company where now somebody you want to connect to works? Why this person are you reaching out to? Something a little bit personal is always better here. Or could be timing. right? Is there something happening in the market, something happening in the world, something happening in the news that is a reason for you to reach out to them and ask for a referral because you're perfectly positioned to solve problems that are happening and that are kind of top of mind for everybody. So, a couple of different ways to think about the why, and that's the why now piece. You always want to frame the reason in terms of benefits to others. This is not a, hey, I'm having a hard time finding clients, so who do you know that you can help me out? That is not that is not how you ask for the referral. It's all about what you can do for others, right? We're in freelance services primarily here in this room. A lot of us are very creative and have a lot of skills and technicalities. We do what we do to help somebody solve a problem. So the reason always needs to be framed in terms of benefits to others and who you can help because people love helping. Everybody loves to feel they feel really good when they help somebody. So that's the reason why, but they're not doing it only to help you. They're actually going to do it to help their friend. And so having that frame of reference, I think is really, really important. What I've seen done not so well back in the days of in-person marketing, everybody just talks about their business goals. I have a goal to make $1 million. I have a goal to help 20 more people. I have a goal to do all this. And it's all me, me, me. So this communication actually is most effective when it's you, when it's others focused, right? So something to keep in mind there. Again, if there's questions coming through this, like let me know. But the biggest tip on the why, you have to be relevant to who you're speaking to, relevant to their network, relevant to their audience. And that's when you get their attention. Because if we don't cover that part first, the rest of this is totally irrelevant, actually. They're going to stop reading, they're going to stop paying attention if you haven't caught this first hook as to why they want to listen and why they want to help you or help somebody they know, right? By connecting them to you. So that's the first piece is be relevant and relevant to the other person that you're speaking to. Then it's the what. This is where doing the work of your positioning statement, your transformation statement, your problem statement really comes down to have we boiled it down to language that grandma could understand, that somebody not in your industry could understand in terms of the problems you solve for others. Because if you think about organically conversations people have, most people will talk about their problems. They don't necessarily talk about their goals or the technical aspects of what they're trying to do in business or in life. They're talking about what they're struggling with. This is a connection point as humans, especially about the last couple of years. Like, what do we talk about? We talk about things that we're like trying to work through. And that's actually the hook to get them in memory of, oh, you're struggling with your Instagram channels, you're struggling with a newsletter, you're struggling with like connecting or getting surveys from people. Like, I know somebody who does that. Or you're struggling installing this new systems. I know somebody who does that, right? The problems is your foot in the door. So make sure we're framing the language that way. You can also think through the lens of what service package do you have capacity for, especially if you're shifting. Or if there's like one primary service that you're really trying to grow intentionally, that's what you talk about. Okay. And you talk about that problem. You talk about like, that's how you solve this problem. And the other piece of it for a lot of busy freelancers, you want to also talk about the time frame. So if you have a wait list, that's fine. Like I have some space coming up in Q4, in Q1 next year. I am currently looking for clients who want to do this, looking for people who are struggling with this, or want to launch a new product, or launching a new brand, or moving into a new space, or doing XYZ stage of business thing, right? And I can do this and this for them, right? In next years. This is great if you know you have a longer sales cycle or you have a longer kind of like your clientele typically has a longer point of view depending on the service that you offer, right? So you have to know your people. But I always try to cover these things. So the problem, like which solution are you offering, and then is there a time frame for that? Even if there's not a wait list, you still want to offer the time frame to give people context, right? This is not a tomorrow thing, and we don't really want people to have everything on fire necessarily either. Most of us don't anyway. So it's okay to frame this sort of conversation and understand your clients when they start talking about looking for support from somebody like you. So being helpful is the best way to solve the what. So, how are you most helpful? How can we describe how helpful you can be and what ways can you help somebody in their circle? That's what's going to also stick in their memory is how can you be so helpful that that's what they remember when somebody is talking about their problem or when somebody recently was talking about a problem they had. So, 3 is who is the connection. This I find is where we get a little bit FOMO. We try to say anybody who's a coach, anybody with a business, anybody who, yeah, no, we need to get really specific here. So yes, it's your ideal client, but again, think about those memory triggers. Think about what's going to make them think about who's in their circle. Is there a position? Is there a title? Is there another memory trigger? Is it VP of marketing that's the best person to speak to you because they're the ones that are decision makers, right? Is it somebody in IT at X company because you have a solution for this sort of a client? Do we have, again, target companies or target ideal like places you want to get your foot in the door? And then who's the position? Is it somebody in HR at Google that would be the perfect like foot in the door for you to come do a lunch and learn presentation or to come and do something? Is it somebody in recruiting at so, right? Where do we want to go and how specific can we get? If it's like a bigger B2B sort of scenario, if you're in more B2C or like the smaller, like small business B2B, what stage of business are they in or what stage of the problem are they experiencing? So examples, do you work with startups or do you work with businesses that have been in business 20 years and are now like innovating and they have a lot more things going on? Are they in growth mode? Did they just take their business online? Did they just receive funding? Like which stage triggers can you think of to seed your perfect connection description with so that people, again, these are conversations that people are having in the industry, right? I think of an example from the coaching space. There are coaches that specialize in people who only have an idea and want to get started. There are coaches who specialize in that middle scaling growth phase. That's generally where I like to play because it's a little messy and they have to kind of get it sorted out. And then there's coaches who specialize in like 7-figure plus, like big businesses, lots of moving pieces. Like those are the problems they solve for like thought leadership and big systems operations. Like they're all very different. So think about your clients. Which stage of business are they in? What are the triggers or descriptors you could add around that to get people thinking about that perfect connection for you? Okay. I promise you're not going to limit yourself. This is actually going to be the memory triggers that they're going to have in their head for conversations, make it more likely you'll get referred instead of less likely. Because being specific is the best advice if you want quality referrals to come through. Super quality referrals, the best people to speak to. All right. And 4, then is the how. This is the piece we also sometimes forget or assume that the person on the other side of the screen or on the other side of the conversation just knows how to refer somebody to you. I promise we don't. I just don't assume people are good at this. Let's be directive. One, because you're saving them time and energy because they don't have to think about it or worry about it or worry they're not going to get it right or like feel the awkward decision point. No decision fatigue here. We want to eliminate any and all decisions as much as we can for your referrers because they're doing you a favor and they're extending their trust to you, their network, which is huge. So we do want to be directive. Do you prefer a joint email? Is that the safest space for somebody to introduce you? Fantastic. Give them a template. Send this message, connect us. That's perfect. Do you prefer a LinkedIn connection? Tell them exactly how to do that. Do you want them to bring somebody to your next live networking event or next conference, next webinar? Invite them to a thing where they can actually engage with you in person. Think about what works best for you. How do you best connect to people? What's the simplest process for you to then follow up and initiate the next phase of your sort of discovery and or sales conversation? And just be super directive. And it absolutely include a couple quick sentences, a template message, some swipe copy, a copy and paste version is the fastest way to, again, make sure you are doing the work to make it really easy for somebody to refer you. You want to reduce any and all potential barriers to the introduction. So I will say, have them contact me. Has anybody ever had, yeah, I'll have them call you, and then crickets? That's not a referral, you guys. I appreciate the idea of word of mouth, and it's possible some of that stuff could come back around. I prefer my business owners to have control over a situation, at least to a degree, or to at least be informed, to know how many people are being sent their way and be taking the responsibility then of doing the follow-up. If we put the follow-up on a client who's busy, who's in the middle of a problem, who's in like whatever situation you're supposed to help them with, the odds of that it'll get completed in this busy time with distractions, with everything happening in the world are slim. If you take the responsibility by crafting a very directive introduction to where then you have the contact points, you can do the follow up through your process. Your odds of success are much higher, right? Right. Any questions about why, what, who, and how before I move on to some other whens and fun topics? Is this making sense to everybody? You're welcome to come on and talk or just type in the chat. Either one's fine. I got a thumbs up. Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, be directive is I think the piece we forget. We just got to give them the easy button. Can you direct the referral with specific questions, trying to have the answers you would like? Tell me more. Direct the referral with specific questions. So I think what you're saying is, do you want to collect information from the referral already? Generally, no. I want that to be part of the sales process. I don't want your intermediary, the person for connecting you, to be stuck in the middle of that. I don't know that that's the. Again, we're not trying to equip a sales team. All we're trying to do is have a connector and make somebody feel good that they can make a connection, right? So I don't think it's our job to expect our referrers to sell you. I don't think it's our job to expect them to market you better than you market yourself. I think you give them the tool they need to be the connection point and make that connection, and then it's your responsibility from there to move them through your normal sales process, your discovery process, all those things. Yeah. So a typical script might be, hey, so and so, I know we were just talking about you were looking for a rebrand and you're so excited about where you're headed with your business. Well, I actually know this amazing brand designer and I've worked with her in the past, or I've heard rave reviews from other people in our network. I'd love to connect you. So here's a joint email that you guys take it from here, right? That's an example template, right? It can be that simple. The reasons why, who's who. Again, it has their why and their who's are kind of also in the template. So that's sort of an example of what sort of a swipe copy or a template message can be. And it needs to be that simple. Again, simple, simple, simple makes it easy, easy, easy. If we're asking our connection points to jump through 18 hoops and then asking the people we haven't even met yet to jump through 20 more hoops, it's a lot. So keep it really simple and you're going to get more traction and make it easier for people to connect to you and be less intimidating, and like they're not going to worry about all the things, right? Great question, Harvey. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. So who do we ask? How many of you guys have, like, I can only ask clients when we're done, when I've proven my worth, when I have results, when they've gotten an ROI, like only then can I possibly ask for a referral? Anybody feel that way sometimes or in the past? Okay. That's most often what I hear is we feel like we only this perfect moment, which is like right when you're wrapping up the project, concluding, and then you're like, but I have to ask for a referral, like, yeah, no, I fully believe there's many other points and times we can ask, and many other people beyond just clients that we can ask. So current and past clients for sure, because they already know your work. They're the closest to, pardon the church bells, Italy. They're the closest to your work and your value and understanding the problems that you solve because they're actually getting it solved. But other amazing referral sources that you may not have considered, other freelancers and professionals in your network, and maybe you guys do have some great symbiotic, it must be an event, symbiotic relationships happening where you've got some great cross promotions going with like a web developer and a copywriter, with social media marketing and a content writer, with like a strategist and like an operations person, with a tech integrator and a coach, or these sorts of things, right? There's some logical kind of, who knew? Sorry, y'all. Logical partnership sort of opportunities here, but you could also ask for a referral from anybody who knows you professionally, including friends and family. I'll add an asterisk there because they're not always in the right circles that you or want to be kind of swimming in terms of getting you in front of the right people that are your ideal clients. But sometimes they are, but they also are going to have, on this point earlier, a different perspective of who you are and what you do than maybe professionals. So just a caveat, you have to do more education actually with family versus less. You have to do a lot more education if you want to lean on family, I find, in the professional sphere. But another one that maybe might surprise you guys, have you ever had a referral from a prospect who's decided not to hire you? I have. Multiple, actually. And it's only because they had such a positive experience at our discovery call. They weren't at the right timing. any of those things, but I was able to show up in a way that they really trusted that I knew what I was doing. It just wasn't right for them right now. I've gotten people from folks who have never hired me, introductions, and those sorts of things. So don't be shy. You show up as a professional a lot of ways that you're probably not aware of. And I know it's cliche to say you could ask anybody. Mm. You do want to be specific, but it is not a prerequisite that they must have experienced your service to ask them for a referral. Your professional kind of presence, impression, brand is picked up by a lot of people. I will say I just spent a 2 week retreat in a co-living space, and at the end of the 2 weeks, we had a little exercise where people wrote down words that either were their impression of us through the 2 weeks, or that they were like hoping for us as we left. And half of my words had to do with being brilliant, being smart, being really good at what I do, like very professional, hard worker, like these sorts of things. None of them were clients. None of them even saw me work. They got that impression just from how I was being in sort of the group dynamic. And that's sort of the thing that I think we forget about. And I asked, how fast do you ask those prospects for a referral? That's a great question. So when can we ask them? Honestly, you could do it as early as that call when they're saying no. I don't see any reason why not. And I think it depends on how you're leading the conversation, right? Sales processes is a different topic for a different day. But if they're like, I can't hire you right now, I'm going this direction or this reason or whatever, like fantastic. I really appreciate that. I know you're also really well networked and we had such a great conversation. I feel like you'd be a really good judge of what it is that I do from our conversation. So if you know somebody else who's looking for X in your network that you come across the next week or two, I do still have availability for 2 more people in the next 6 months to come on board with me. So I would love a referral. It can be that simple as part of the back and forth. We just have to get comfortable saying these things and stringing it together, right? So this comes back to building a reputation. And you can do this with anybody in your personal professional network. It's a little harder on the personal, especially with family friends. You do have to do a little bit more education as to what it is that you do, get the grandma phrase sort of ironed out in terms of the message. And they're going to see you a little bit differently, but you can do it, especially if you do have some that are in the professional circles you're trying to lean into. But your reputation, you can build that from social media content. You can build that from events. You can build that from just how you respond to an inquiry or an email or these sort of interactions. You can build that from free discovery calls or these sorts of opportunities. You can build it from anything that you do. And we often discount anything that doesn't turn into a sale or a client as not part of the process. Those are all part of the process. Okay. And I will say I shared that most of my referral businesses last year most of my business referral based. Most of my referrals come from someone who's never worked with me, who I've never even had a discovery call with. But she knows somebody who knows the work that I do intimately. And they were talking about what it is that I do. And she sent one client. The client had an amazing experience. She got feedback. And now she sent me 5 more, literally, you guys, 5 more referrals in the last 6 months. Having never worked with me, never talked about what it is that I do, these sorts of things. But the professionalism with our connection, the professionalism with my first client of hers that she sent over, that all is bringing that reputation back to where she now has trust that she sends somebody else, they'll be taken care of. Does that make sense? So it's the little things that you do that can start to generate this. And of course, there's a lot of thank yous, other things involved in that relationship. And I'm nurturing that further now. When I have something new or when I have a new direction, I make sure I include her, which we'll talk about. But that's an example of we can think outside the box of only clients. If you show up consistently, professionally, if you offer value, people will start to pick up on that. And the more clear you can work out some of that do the work pieces, the easier it becomes for somebody to send somebody to you. So to Anna's other question, when can we ask for these referrals? I will start with the example I gave in any professional conversation, which could be a discovery call, could be a networking event, could be something random somewhere else, could be you're working with a service provider. How you're showing up translates. And so the conversation may come around to that, or you could open the door to that sort of thing. I think the easiest opportunity is at regular intervals with current and past clients. So you can make this a condition of doing business with you. You can let them know when they sign up that I hope you have an amazing experience. I am looking to grow my business. I am creating capacity to solve this many problems for this many more people. And so as we work together, if somebody else has a similar issue or is working on similar things, like I'd love introduction because I think your network would be a great fit for me based on what I know about you, right? You can do that. You can make it a condition of doing business. You can let them know you're going to ask for one later. You could also do it, I think, the other easiest place when celebrating results and milestones. So if you are doing a hoorah, whenever the vibe is high, that's a great time to ask for referrals. Maybe not if they're like really struggling or if there was a hiccup or if there was a snag, maybe not that conversation. But any of the positive conversations, especially a celebration based conversation when they're really faced with how much better it is, the problems that you're helping them solve, readdressing how they felt about the problem earlier and who else might have that problem that might want to feel this way is a really great segue into that ask. And that's the why, right? Well, because you're experiencing this amazing change or noticing this amazing progress, you've had such great growth, or your systems are running so much easier, you got like so many hours back. Like, who do you know that was kind of where you were a few months ago that was struggling with X, Y, and Z thing? Because I have one more opening coming up in 2 months. I'd love to help somebody else achieve the same transformation or transition or progress, right? That's the way to frame again that why and that who piece. Just get that conversation started. Does that make sense? So these are all just great little triggers. All of these times, there's rarely a bad time. Only bad time would be during maybe a constructive or negative conversation when there was a hiccup in something happening on either side. Not even if you didn't create it, if there was just something funky, we're then on the headspace for it. But generally speaking, a lot of the time. And I think here's another story I'll tell you. The worst thing you can do is assume everybody knows you want new business. You always need to be sharing the message that you're open for new business. I'll tell you, I had an awareness moment of this very early in my days with a great client, fantastic client, and she mentioned that she had thought of somebody she wanted to introduce me, but like, are you open to new clients? You look really busy. I didn't know if you were taking anybody else on. And I had a facepalm moment of, oh, clearly I'm trying to project the I'm so busy, so successful, like vibe. People think I don't have space for somebody new. So make sure that you're letting people know you're open for business regularly, all the time. How can you create an impression, especially with relationships? I would love to serve any other people you know in the similar space. Like, I really trust referrals. I value your trust. I'm always open to new discussions for business. So, any tips on smooth follow up when they haven't reacted to your referral request? Consistent follow up is what I would say. I think it depends on Katrina if they've said they have somebody specific or if they're just thinking. So if they have somebody specific in mind and it's just the execution of that you haven't seen, I would set a regular cadence, just like in sales follow up. You have to do it a bazillion times, right? Regular cadence to check in, make sure we have that script, make sure we have that quick how to cut and paste, and like easy button for them to be able to actually execute the referral if they have somebody specific in mind. If it's the more general, well, I'll think about it. Yeah, I'll see if I know anybody. That's where it just needs to be part of your regular ask, which could be in your email signature, which could be in occasionally marketing content, which could be in a client progress check, which could be in a quarterly personal message, that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Did I answer Katrina, Katrin? Yeah, I think it depends on, have they said they're thinking or do they have somebody specific in mind? Because I would treat those two a little bit differently. If they're still thinking, then they just are in my regular ongoing nurture process, which includes referral asks. Yeah. All right. Are there any scripts, templates available for this? I didn't create any as part of this workshop, but if you reach out to me through LinkedIn, I'm happy to share. I have a lot of free resources for freelancers, and also Nomawa has a ton in our community and the club level, as well as the groups that we work through on a bit more specific basis through scale and that sort of thing. So Herg, please connect with me after the fact and we will see if we can connect you to any of those things. These are great questions, you guys. So, I mean, the biggest piece, like big picture, is how do you cultivate kind of the perception that you're the go-to resource? And I think that has a lot to do with thanking people, becoming the trusted referral partner, again, always being open for business, just letting everybody know this is what you do, this is who you help. And just like anything in marketing, we have to actually say it and ask for it probably more regularly than we think. We feel like we're beating a dead horse. it's not going to feel that way to everybody else. Because the reality is, when it comes to referrals, people love helping people. They love helping you. They also love helping their friend, especially if they trust that their friend's going to have an amazing experience with your support. And so everybody loves to feel like they're helping. Nobody hates helping somebody. That's just that we don't have the Scrooges in the world really that are in that ballpark. Everybody feels better about themselves and about what they're doing in the world when they know they've made a connection. So it's just a matter of leveraging that. So summary, because I know we're getting short on the time here. Do the work, include why, what, who, and how. Always be open for business and be gracious and position yourself as the go-to person. So that's that is what I have to share. If there's any other questions, let me know. Thanks you guys so much for your attention and all the questions so far. That was good to hear.